Saint Lucia, mama. That's the land of my birth.
Bonjour, bonjour, bonjour tout le monde. Jodi a c'est vendredi, il disait, et puis temps pour conversation a kabawea. Good morning, everyone. It is Friday, 10 a.m., and it is time for Rum Shop Talks. You guys, I am so excited for today. A year ago, on the 28th of February, we launched the first ever episode of Rum Shop Talks, and so since the 28th is on a Friday, I figured we'd be celebrating today. So the first thing we're gonna do today is actually do a little celebration for Rum Shop, and then later we're gonna have a guest. I told you guys about her last week Friday. Greta Tucker, resident realtor, will be joining us in a few minutes, and so let's get started with the rum drink. And I got a little ambitious, so be kind. And I created my very own drink. We called it the Rum Shop, just because, why not, right? And in the interest of time, I had everything pre-mixed, but as you can see in front of me here, we have all of the ingredients that I used, and we just put the recipe for Rum Shop up on the screen. We'll also be posting that down in the comments later, so you guys can go ahead and try it out. We had a lot of fun creating Rum Shop, and I do hope you guys try it and like it. So what I'm gonna do is actually show you guys how I assembled it to have the two-color tier. And the Rum Shop was kind of like our own play on the Mai Tai, because I love me a good Mai Tai, and I figured why not figure out how to make my own. And so we're gonna start with some crushed ice in a champagne glass. We chose a champagne glass because it just like features, like it just looks really nice, but a tall glass will do. So I'm just gonna pop in some crushed ice here, and I've got my juice and rum mix already prepped and ready to go. In here we have some pineapple juice, lime juice, mango, just typical Caribbean flavors. We've got a orgeat syrup, which is a almond syrup, and of course we have lots of rum in here because you have to have rum in the drink. And so we're just gonna pour in about 2/3 of the cup filled. It's about here. I forgot the salsa, you guys, because we top it up with salsa, but that's okay. Next, to create the two layers, you're gonna grab a spoon and you're just gonna place it right here in your cup, and you're gonna slowly pour it. In here we have vodka and the blue curacao. Yes, lots of alcohol. Very slowly you want to pour it in here because you don't want to disturb your juice mixture. And you can pour the whole thing if you wanted to. That's a lot of vodka. Or you can pour however much you desire to get that nice stirration. And then if I actually had been a little bit more prepared and had my salsa water out here, I would have used the spoon and added just a little bit of salsa water. That gives it an aquamarine kind of color. So you end up with like 3 colors in it, and garnish with a pineapple drink. And of course, if you in order for you to like have all the flavors when you drink it, you just do a little stir like this, and voila, a Rum Shop. I'm not gonna actually drink this morning because I haven't even had breakfast yet, so it's a little bit too much alcohol for me so early in this morning. So I'm just gonna move this to the side here, and we're going to get started. So as I mentioned, we have Greta Tucker. She's a realtor. I can't even remember how we got introduced, so Greta's gonna have to tell. Hopefully she remembers and can fill in the holes for my faulty memory. Greta is an African American realtor in Dana Point. She actually bought her first multi-family unit when she was 23 years old, which is amazing. And then she went on to purchase another one in 2009, she ended up selling her buildings. But what really got me thinking about the fact that Greta would make an amazing host for today is because you guys know that for the whole of February, I have been highlighting African American heroes, African American icons, and one of the things that we have, and then also we've talked a lot about home ownership and intergenerational wealth. And that's one thing that we hadn't covered yet in the month of February. So I figured to close off African American History Month, Black History Month, and also to kind of start that conversation, that Greta would be an amazing host. So we're going to bring Greta on right now. You guys, welcome Greta Tucker.
Hello, thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Thank you so much for agreeing to be here, Greta. I'm very excited to talk to you. So first, I probably completely botched your intro. So why don't you tell our guest all about yourself?
I will, and I'm going to start by telling how we met. So it was at the Dana Point Chamber of Commerce. I joined the Dana Point Chamber of Commerce last year, and you were the assistant chair. Now you're the chair of the ambassador committee, correct?
Yes, I am. Yes.
Yes, that's how we met. But I must say that I didn't recognize you with the mask and everything when you came in. But then when you said who you were, I said, oh, I've been seeing your ads in local papers for a long time. And there's not too many of us around here. So I remember seeing you for years. So I was glad to have. So I am a residential realtor based in beautiful Dana Point, California. I've been in real estate for about 15 years. The majority of that I have been dual career with a corporate finance and accounting background. But my passion has always been real estate from the time I was a little girl with my dad having a renovation business. So I would see him really go in and transform office or a home, and I was just intrigued by it. I used to grab the real estate magazines from the grocery store and sit in my room for hours, and I found it the other day. I still have it from middle school when I designed my dream house.
Oh, no way.
I should have pulled it out for this since, we're talking about home ownership and goals and things. So I have 3 beautiful children, thanks to my wonderful husband, Doug. He is a Marine Corps veteran who was a firefighter for 16 years and also was in law enforcement for a while. So we see kind of both sides of the story as far as supporting law enforcement, but also knowing some of the experiences that African Americans have had with law enforcement. But my 3 kids are 2, 4, and 6 years old. They're tons of fun, and we homeschool. And by we, I mean he. I'm here in my office, and my husband's wrangling the kids. So
that's amazing. So I'm just curious. Did you guys do homeschool by choice, or was it like because of like COVID and everything?
We homeschooled before homeschooling was cool. So. Or detested, I'm not sure which. But so our oldest is 6 years old, and his first year officially homeschooling was last year. And then we had him in an enrichment program where he went 2 days a week. And then COVID happened, he went online, and we just said, oh, we can do this. And now there's plenty of activities and things for him to do online, but we have our own curriculum that we purchased, and my husband runs through and do that with him.
That is awesome. I tip my hat off to you because I don't think that I would ever take on the option of homeschooling. I believe that my kids need to go be somewhere else and be taught by someone else, and it preserves the family relationship. So hats off to you guys. So one of the things that I really am interested in, being from the Caribbean and not really knowing much about African American history, coming here over 20 years ago, I've done a lot of research. And good morning, you guys. Welcome, Tess. Welcome, Trani. And I have been very interested in the idea of redlining and the effect that it had on home ownership in the African American community. But beyond that, the effect it had on the transfer of wealth, the accumulation and the transfer of wealth within those families. And so that is something that I want to touch a little bit on. So for you guys who don't know what redlining is, I did a little bit of Googling, and you can Google too, but but what redlining was it was actually a federal program that was it was in response to a home shortage in the 30s, and they basically incentivized builders to go out and build suburban communities. And with the thought of not selling, not even the thought, but the directive of not selling to African American people. And African Americans were then shuttled over into urban housing projects. And you guys who are in the city, I know, like my sisters here in Brooklyn, you know what the projects looks like. And so that was like that all started in the 1930s. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that, Greta?
Absolutely. And I will lead by saying I'm not a historian, but it's important. And I actually just shared this information with my networking group of realtors. We were in a mastermind just before this meeting. And I thought it was important for them to know the history so that they can understand where we are now and why some laws are changing and how that impacts our clients, buyers and sellers. So back in the 30s, after the war, FDR was implementing the New Deal. And part of that was to spur the economy and encourage home ownership. So that's when programs were created for a 30-year home mortgage. And in order to encourage builders to build out these cities for people to purchase them, they had certain requirements and ways of designating different areas, good, bad, indifferent. And that was short-term redlining. And there were color-coded maps based on different classifications of people. So there was yellow, blue, green, and red. And essentially it meant areas that were all white, working class, all white, well-to-do. Then there was a working class. Then there was a deteriorating, some infiltration of Negroes or other immigrants. And then there was the red areas, which were largely populations of undesirables. So there's lots of great videos. Feel free to YouTube or Google, or I'm happy to follow up with anyone. But that's where it started. So in the 30s is when lots of people, the majority were able to purchase properties, own them, and then pass that on to their children, and that's how they accumulate wealth, because the majority of wealth in this country, at least, is through real estate ownership. Always has been historically. So in areas that were designated red, people that owned in those areas, black, white, or otherwise, they no longer had backing and ability to get loans on their properties. So a lot of the people that own properties there, white people that own properties, they just abandoned them because they weren't able to get any real backing of the property. And so that's when those areas started to deteriorate, because there was no money flowing into those communities. So fast forward 35 years, we have the Federal Housing Administration putting in Fair Housing Act, supposedly to, change those things. So now it's illegal, but there's still
10, 15.
There were still a lot of systematic things in place that made it still difficult for people to purchase houses, that being appraisals, which still happens today, with issues being on not able to get the value of your home if you're in one of those neighborhoods, or if there have been even examples of people taking down the pictures in their house if it was a mixed race couple or a black couple, and then immediately having another appraiser come in there or having a different value on the home. So
yeah, I actually saw a story about that. Was it last year? And it was this black couple had their home appraised, got a low value, took the photos down, had a friend who was white get the person to come and appraise the exact same house, and saw a jump in an actual jump in the appreciation of their home. And that's very interesting, because what are we in, like 2020?
Right.
This stuff started in 2000. in the 1930s, and look at where we are now, and it's still like, happening. So I want to really spend a little bit of time on the impact that redlining had on home ownership for African Americans.
Okay. So redlining meant that those areas that were designated red, banks were not to lend in those areas because there wasn't a good value of the community. So literally, there was no money going into those communities to be able to build them up. There was no loans being given to people in those communities. And so the question might be, well, why didn't Black people just move out of those communities then?
Mm-hmm.
I won't say we weren't allowed to, but we weren't welcomed.
Yeah.
No, I will take that back. We weren't allowed to. There was something also called restrictive covenants. So a lot of the communities that were being built in the, green desirable areas had covenants written into their builder documents that when you purchase a home here, you are agreeing not to have certain classes of people or races of people in that community. And those existed for many, many years. And in some communities, they may still exist, not enforceable, but until let's say somebody's lived there for 70 years, if all the residents have lived there 70 years and they never transferred the title, it may just never have been changed. And then someone comes in now and they say, well, what is this? And that's when it's legally, required. It's not enforceable. And that's when they would change the documents. But they exist all over the place, including 1 mile down the street from me. There's a community that was found to have still restrictive covenants in their documents, I think about 15 years ago.
Oh, wow. That is insane. And I find it very interesting because part of when I was reading, it was like there was the underwriting manual of the FHA that talks about incompatible racial groups should not be permitted in the same community. And it's insane to me that a federal organization would actually have that in their underwriting manuals. And what exactly is incompatible racial groups? Like, how do you even define incompatible racial groups?
Non-white, completely white. So
yeah.
Speaking plain English, that's when. So if you were, they classified in the document as immigrants, Negroes, and then even in some instances it said Jews and German-born, so it goes way back. This country has a very deep history of, only wanting one type of person in our history. So we call ourselves a melting pot, but that's not what the history of how things were practiced here has shown. So it's a melting pot, but it boiled hotter for some people than others.
Yeah, that has been something that we have learned living here for 20 years, is just how much of a melting pot on the surface, but the history and still what boils underneath does not reflect the ideology of a melting pot. And so you mentioned earlier that owning a home is one of the ways that a fair bit of time on that, because as an estate planner, I see, I get to be the fly on the wall of a lot of financial portfolios, and have seen how that how owning a home makes a difference in how the family lands, but also how the children and grandchildren end up in terms of wealth. Like, when every generation is not starting off from the bottom, how that is such a great leg up for the family. And so obviously, the argument can be made like, well, yeah, there were all of those restrictions put in place, but African Americans were still able to buy homes. I want to spend a little bit of time on how that happened, and also what the impact was for that, from how they were able to purchase homes and the impact that had on the wealth in the families and also the transfer of wealth for those families.
Okay. And some were able to purchase homes. Others have been denied financing or not able to because of appraisal values to sell their property for what it really should be worth. So, and really I say some because there were some people who have just not been able to do so, and it wasn't any fault of their own. It was just the things that are. So people who have purchased homes, African American people that have purchased homes, speak in generalizations now and just saying that the majority of those are in communities that are did not get the level of funding that other communities have had. So if you have a larger, let's think about tax base. So if you own a property, your taxes are a percentage of your home. So in communities where there's more taxes going in from property owners into the community, those schools are generally going to be better. And then those children have a better education and, opportunities to go to college and, cycle that same process through to their children. When the opposite of that happens, you're left with a community of people who don't own the properties. They're renting majority of the time. And there's no way to build wealth because with real estate, the longer you own a property and hold it, there's appreciation. Forget the cycles, ups and downs. There's appreciation. And I think the best example of that, which is not a traditional example, but if we look at the past year, 2020 to 2021, home values have appreciated at rates that haven't been seen. And it's because the interest rates dropped. So people are able to afford more homes. But consider that the people who didn't have the ability to purchase a home or who didn't have another home to sell and use that money in the equity to get their next home, the wealth gap is now even larger because those who had have more. Those who didn't have are still down here while, this line is going that way. So despite where we think we are with talks and everything coming to light last year, there's still the impact of what happened from 1930. If we really want to look at it, what happened from 1700 or whatever, going forward today, and that's still impacting African Americans to this day and other minorities. But I'm speaking of the institutionalism of this problem.
I read a book. I haven't finished it yet, but it was called The Color of Money. And in there, the author really talks about the fact that African Americans, when they were able to, because they weren't able to get financing through banks and have the same level of financing, they ended up having to turn to predatory lending, where they were getting much higher interest rates and because they were seen as such a big risk, But the reason why they were seen as such a big risk is because they were all herded into communities and then into communities that became depressed. And so it was like, yes, the argument can be made like, well, if you're living in a poor place or distressed neighborhood, yeah, giving money to you doesn't seem like that great of an investment. However, the reason why those areas were depressed was because the majority manufactured the depression with the regulations that they put in place. And I've noticed in the comments here, someone mentioned that they only learned about redlining last year. How insane is that? And I wonder how many people would say the same thing, or even say that they have never heard of redlining, when the impact of those regulations are still felt today. And I noticed how you were doing the graph. You had the wealthy going like this, and then the poor people staying here. Not even sort of catching up. They're still just like that. So, as a realtor, in your experience, with your knowledge, is there a way out? I'm interested to know, is there a way to close that wealth gap? And how do we start to approach it so that maybe not in this generation, but maybe in a couple of generations, that turns into something closer to this, or maybe eventually like this, where we're all on the same, like, trajectory?
I will say that this is one reason I have been uncomfortable in the past year, because I feel like I'd be speaking for all Black people or speaking as an expert on the topic and telling people when I share these things with them, they said, well, what can I do? And it's almost like I believe it's from the heart, but those requests are like, what can I do to make sure that I check the box and then we can move on? And it's so much bigger than that. It is about having these conversations, changing laws, understanding what's going on in your community at the state level, federal level, that's really impacting these things. Because I don't have a simple answer. I don't have, make sure that people are aware of home ownership, first-time home buyer programs. I could do that all day and night. That's not going to keep these people, who could eventually purchase something from still being this far behind, in my grassroots directions. But one thing that I was just mentioning to my realtor mastermind group was about a recent change in the laws regarding fair housing, is that now sellers and buyers are required to be given a disclosure and asked to sign it regarding fair housing, and that you won't discriminate based on when it started with Civil Rights Act, it was 5 categories, and now it's about 13, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but it's a lot of different categories, and that's impacting the way that people are doing business now, where traditionally a buyer would be writing a letter to the seller saying, oh, they might even include a picture. Here's my family. Here's why we love your house, and telling about themselves. But familial status being a protected class, and race, amongst other things, age, now that's not the way we do business. It's actually, we can get fined if we submit or accept the letter and have that given to our client, because it could result in conscious or unconscious bias. To answer your question, it's really a matter of having these conversations and making sure that we are aware of where have these things been showing up in our everyday life. Like, people thought, oh, well, getting a buyer letter is great. It's a great way to learn who's going to come into my community. Why does it matter if you're leaving?
Yeah.
Why do you need to know who's purchasing your home? Because you want your neighbors to have good neighbors. Well, what does good neighbors mean?
Now, I that's a very interesting point, and it's not one that I actually would have even considered. I've seen, even I want to say like sometime last year, people complained about not being able to like purchase homes because of the fact that it's a seller's market now. Like, buyers are like, by the time a house hits the market, it's gone, and it's going to like, cash buyers. And one of the suggestions was write a letter to the seller and send a photo so they know, like, who you are, and maybe that will help you purchase. And then I hear you say that is not actually like, what we're allowed to do. In fact, that we can get fined for doing that. So that's very interesting, because I did not know that. And it's still being and you can see how that the negative impact of that, as much as it's like you see the positive, but the negative impact is there, and it is like, it's pervasive. And you're right, whether it is, I imagine a lot of it might be like, unconscious, but if you have a certain thought about a certain person or a certain group of people, and you receive a letter from them with a photo of the family, something might make you be like, I was gonna, like, all of a sudden it's like, maybe not, and so I can see why they would say that is not an allowable thing to do anymore.
And I personally have been not an advocate of it for years, because in my mind, that was my experience. I'm thinking, I live in a predominantly white community. If I were the one applying for this, would I be accepted if I submitted this letter? So I don't work with just Black clients. Actually, I'm trying to think how many I have. Because my clients are, all over the board. But I always give them the option. Not anymore. Now it's against the law. But I used to give them the option to, and I kind of would smile to myself when they said, "Oh, I don't need to do that. Like, it's about the numbers." So I would like when my clients like viewed things that way, but there are a lot of emotional sellers and buyers who, like, now they're, what do you mean I can't send it? You can. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to risk my license, but
right.
as realtors, anyone with a real estate license is not to give any anything that might sway a transaction, the decision makers, due to conscious or unconscious bias.
I like that. And I know that some banks out there have been educating their mortgage brokers on redlining, its effects, and some of them are actually making a conscious effort, having it be part of their mission going forward to help get good mortgages in the hands of African American communities to start to help with, like, we will start to help with home ownership and hopefully get us on the road to moving the wealth gap in a positive direction. I don't want to say changing. I don't want to say, like, because it really feels like an upward climb when you look at the history and how pervasive this stuff all is, and has been and continues to be. And so I want to thank you so much, Greta, for joining us today. This has been so informative. It's like when I say things, I feel like, kind of like what you were saying, I feel unqualified to say it because it's like I know I've got my wheelhouse. There's what I know, and then there's, like, the little bit about everything else I can talk about. So it's always great when I get to have conversations with people who are in the field, who know more than I do. Do you have any? I'd like to also mention that one of your goals was home ownership, not only for your clients but for yourself as well, which I think is amazing. And so we wish you luck on that. Let me know. I want to continue to collaborate with you. I think we can do good things with our own expertise. Is there any last words that you would like to share with the audience before we close out?
Well, first of all, just thank you for inviting me to be here. I appreciate the opportunity to really just get the knowledge out there. I won't say a message. I don't consider myself to have a platform or any, message I'm trying to communicate other than educating people on where we were, where we are now, and then where we want to go. Let's figure out how to get there. So I would just encourage people to get involved, have these conversations openly, and get involved at your local, state, or federal level with anything that you witness or come to learn about that really can be changed and move things forward.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Greta. Thank you guys for stopping by. Have a wonderful Friday, a wonderful weekend, and we look forward to seeing you guys next week for another episode of Rum Shop Talk. And we're gonna be in March, which is Women's History Month. So similar to African American history, we will be highlighting important women, whether that is women in my life or women who have made an impact in women's rights around the country and around the world, in history or in current. I haven't figured all that out yet. So, but just know that we'll be talking about important women coming up in March. Bye, everyone.